Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny. So I'm here today to update you on my reading so far in 2023. And strangely enough, it has not gone the way it normally goes for me so far this year for reading. So I just wanted to chat about that a little bit. I only finished 2 books in January, which is a bit bizarre to me. But I think there's this interesting change maybe into how I've been reading over the last 2 months. I guess it also kind of happened in December. And because of this big trip I'm taking in March to South Africa, I had a very specific TBR that I put together for that, and there's a whole video on that. And I haven't actually been reading in a way that I normally would. It's kind of been, so January and February have kind of been put into this slot of pre-South Africa, and then I'll have my post-South Africa reading and then my in-South Africa reading. I don't know how much reading I will get done there. And the way January went, it was actually quite busy, and I just wasn't able to prioritize the same amount of time that I normally do for my reading. And so the result of that is that I didn't have a lot of finishes at the end of the month, and I didn't feel like I wanted to do a January wrap up with 2 books. So I will be putting my January and February reading together into one wrap up that you will see most likely in sometime in March. I'll probably pre-edit that and schedule it so it goes up sometime in March when I'm away. And so I'm not going to make a dedicated February TBR video right now because I'm carrying over so many books. And that feels very strange because it's been probably at least 2 years, maybe even more, 3 or 4 years, where I've been reading very consistently, month to month, ending books, starting the new TBR. And it was all very clean and neat and tidy. And it just hasn't gone that way for 2023. So rather than freak out or lament this change to pattern, I'm just trying to flow with it because I think it seems to be, for some reason, what I need right now for my reading. So I'm just gonna go with it. So let me just update you on where I am with my reading. 2 of the books that were on my January TBR, I knew I would not be finishing by the end of the month. So they are on track. One of them is Child of the Fire by Kristen Pye Buick. This book I was slated to finish this weekend, so the first weekend of February, and so that is on track. I'm on the last section. This was my book club pick for the Thrive Together network, so this was all planned. This was how it was supposed to go. And the other book that I have not finished yet is another book I haven't finished but knew I wasn't going to finish was Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. So what has saved me in reading this book is that my library, my Libby app, had the audiobook of this. So when I finished the first audiobook that I was listening to in January, I got this one, and I have reached, I think I'm at 65 or 70% of the book. So this would not have gone as quickly if I didn't have the audiobook. Just the nature of this biography is one where there's a lot of names, dates, political discussion. It's something that works better for me in an audio format than it would if I was reading it physically. So I've been happy to see the photographs that are included in this, and then whenever I've heard something that I wanted to remember, I've gone and found the chapter, found the page, underlined things, but ultimately listening to this on audio has been great, and I'm going to be finishing that up in February. The other 2 books that I am still reading for my January TBR are Daily Rituals, Women at Work by Mason Curry. I am over halfway because there are a lot of notes in this book, so I think I have just about 100 pages left. So I assume I'm going to be finishing this in the next week or 2. But again, I'm not reading this continuously because it is the vignettes about different women's daily routines. I'm just kind of reading 3 or 4 at a time. And then I'm still reading Small Game Hunting at the Local Colour Gum Club by Megan Gale Coles. There's a few reasons for that. It's not a book that I've been compelled to keep reading in the typical way, but I still like it enough to want to finish it. I just think that the format of it is one where it's been easy for me to put down. So I'm hoping to get this finished in the next week as well, maybe even sooner. I would love to be able to finish it this weekend. Right now I'm filming on February 4th, and then I can move on to my new other novels that I've got on my TBR for February. Okay, so those are the books that I'm wrapping up for my January TBR. And now I'm going to go through my February TBR with you. So if you've watched my South Africa TBR, you know that I created a very long list of books, and I was never going to read all of them. It was just kind of a sharing of the research that I had done about South Africa. One of the books that I talked about, which is not related to South Africa, is Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. This book I read when I was about 13, and I want to reread it before we go on our trip, because we're stopping in Amsterdam and we are going to be going to the Anne Frank house. This is one that I'll start probably in the next day or two, and it's not a very long book. It's about 250 pages, so I should be able to get through this fairly quickly. And then the rest of the books that I put on my TBR for February are all related to South Africa. So I picked A Conspiracy of Mothers by Colleen van Niekerk. This is set, I believe, during the 1980s during apartheid, and follows three mothers as they go through their daily lives and struggles, and I think also have some political activism that has worked into their lives. I also picked Juan by Dawn Promislow. This is focused around an artist's life, and so I tend to gravitate towards those types of novels, and so definitely wanted to check that one out. And that one is set in the 1970s, I believe, under apartheid, and focuses on black-white relationships between an artist and someone that comes to visit at their studio, I believe. And the other one I picked was Crossroads, I Live Where I Like by Koni Benson. And this is one of the graphic novels that was on the list. I was very intrigued by this one. I wanted to see the artwork. I wanted to see how the stories are told. And I'm hoping that I might even be able to share this one with my son Elliot, just to give him a bit more context for South Africa before we go there. And then the final book that I put on my TBR for February is Black Lion by Sicelo Mbatha. And this one is a nonfiction, and it is about Sicelo's work conserving nature and protecting the animals in the South African bush. I'm really excited about this one. I think that it just has a perspective about Africa, a South African culture that I haven't really read a lot about yet, around conservation, around nature, around the environment. So I'm really excited to see what he has to say in that one. So those are the 4 books that I'm adding. So I guess that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the 5 books that I'm adding to my TBR for February. I hope to get all of these done before the end of the month. We leave at the beginning of March. And one thing you might notice for my TBR is that I am not participating in the BookTube prize. If you don't know what the BookTube prize is, please just check out the links down below. That will explain everything for you, but it's basically a prize judging books that were published in the United States in the preceding year, so in 2022. And I did originally sign up for translated fiction. That category was removed for this year. And so I said I would do nonfiction and fiction. And when the email was sent to register to be a judge for this round, I had this feeling that trying to read these books before I went on my trip would be very stressful, and coming back from my trip at the end of March, and having to submit judge rankings and potentially finish books that I hadn't had time to finish while on vacation would also be very stressful. And so I decided not to be a judge this round. I'm very glad that I made that decision. The other bonus to not judging the first round is that there's a lot of duds in there. And I'm hoping that some of the duds are removed from the groupings with this first round of judging, and I don't have to be the person to do that. I think with fiction, I can sometimes push through a book that I'm not enjoying, but with nonfiction, I find it really, really difficult. And so I think for my mental health and for my overall stress level, balancing or trying to flow with life, work, motherhood, and reading, that adding something like the pressure to finish books at a certain date and find those certain books and would be just too much for me at the beginning of the year. So no BookTube prize reading for me for the first round. I will most likely go in for the second round because things will just be a lot calmer for me. And I will either be reading fiction or nonfiction. I don't know. So that is my reading update. It has been very strange, and I have to say that I'm not sure if my reading is going to continue this way for 2023 or if things will fall back into a similar pattern that they've had for the last 4 to 5 years. It's a little bit unnerving to tally my books and see this really small number of finishes, but I think that the nature of the books that I chose to read at the beginning of the year were just not ones that go fast, and there's always other times of the year where I can finish a whole bunch in a month based on the time I have to read and the books that I end up choosing. So I'm just going to flow with it for now. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another video.